As I was walking through the woods today, I wanted to give some thought to why it is we move. Not why we train or why we exercise, but why we practice movement at all. And of course we know there are external motivators like I really ought to be training such and such times per week, I really should be getting this many steps. But it seems like for a compelling case of any kind, we can't rely on external motivators. There has to be something a bit deeper than that. We know that from all the literature on productivity. Those just don't work well as strategies for the long haul. And I was also thinking you could make a pretty compelling case on kind of the nihilist side that we're all going to die anyway. You probably don't need to move because there are all sorts of pills and drugs for aches and pains. There are all sorts of ways you can distract yourself and all forms of escapism. Like, you could spend the rest of your life and not practice movement. But it doesn't seem like it would be a very satisfying one. And at a certain point, there's going to come a time when you will wish you could move better than you can move. At some point in your life, that gap will make itself very apparent, whether that's through an injury or through old age or whatever the case may be. There's going to come a time when you'll wish you could move more than you can't, because your ability to engage with the world around you is limited by your ability to move and to be moved. They go hand in hand. And so, at the root of it, maybe movement is a selfish thing. We do it so that we can engage with the world around us. But I think that falls a little flat too, because it's not inherently selfish. Like, moving better isn't something you do for you as you are now. It's a gift you give to the you that you are becoming, because it takes very real short-term sacrifices. You have to give time, you have to give energy, you have to give effort, you have to say no to certain things and yes to others, and there are very real sacrifices on the path to moving better. So it doesn't even seem like it's selfish in the way we typically think of it, in that it's, a short-term narcissistic thing. Like, it's a gift that you give the you that you are becoming. I think that's part of why we move. And yet I don't think it stops there either, because we don't live in a vacuum. As much as it may seem sometimes like it's really hard to give a shit about the polar bears when your back hurts, we are fundamentally connected to the rest of the world around us. Like, again, I don't know what kind of situation you're in at this point, but imagine that you are living a life without aches and pains, that you are able to wake up and kind of bounce out of bed, that you have energy, you have mobility, you have vitality. What does that do? Not just for your quality of life, but for the lives of those around you. What's it like if you have more energy and more time and attention to give to your friends, to give to your family, to give to your kids as they grow up, or the people in your community? It seems that, you ripple out more than you might realize. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a movement practice has given me is what we could think of as a broadening and a deepening of the self. That it reminds you that you aren't as small and isolated as you may think. That you are actually connected to the rest of the world, to the people around you. And so let's say you have more energy, more time, more focus. You're able to be more of yourself with your friends, with your family, with the people who matter. How far do you think that ripples? Like, I don't honestly think there's a way to tell how much good that can do, how far out that can travel. A quick example. I was picking up trash here at the creek a couple of weeks ago. And I was hauling some out, and this older couple stopped me. They said, "Thank you." And I said, "Well, sure, no problem. I just want it to look better, selfishly. I like pretty places more than ugly places." And yet, as I looked back, so I carried on to the trash can, I looked back and I saw this older guy go off trail, which wasn't an easy feat for him, and pick something up on his own. He picked up a bag that had blown into the trees. So that action clearly rippled. That's not something I would have been able to do if I couldn't move as well as I want to. So I think that fundamentally it's not a selfish thing to move better. It's almost a philosophical, existential imperative to move better. There are things that could be better in the world, and we owe it to the world to make them so. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our friends and our family, we owe it to children and coming generations. It has to start with us. And I'll defer to something Carl Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self. He said that 1,000,000 zeros don't add up to one. It's not that all of us have to take this on ourselves to make things better. It's that some of us do. There are all sorts of ways that we can make the world better, but I don't think any has quite as much payoff, quite as much impact as doing your utmost to move as well as you are able to, because that is the fundamental currency you use to engage with the rest of the world. Nothing else has as much direct payoff. So I think that's probably the best case I can come up with for why we need to move. I'd be curious to hear what you think.